Okay. Thank you everyone for joining once again. This is our last call of the year. The series should continue into next year, but if there's any issues, just let me know. We have some really exciting announcements today, a lot across the policy space and some really exciting previews, and then also some talk around the ARN system event. So I will begin. So the first and quite exciting is the official public preview of our new effect called DenyAction. So previously sometimes referenced as deny delete, but this is the ability to lock or protect your resources at scale from accidental deletion. So in this example that you see here on the screen, it's an if statement that highlights that looks for applicable Microsoft.document db/accounts and looks if they have a tag of environment that does not equal test. So these would be, ones that would, let's say, be prod accounts. And then we'd say deny, the effect is deny action, and the specific action name in this case is delete. Meaning anything that matches that applicability, we won't allow a delete request to go through. This deny action does support multiple types of resources, but there is intricacies in terms of, what happens if the resource targeted is a child, but then the parent is deleted. If it's a index or non-index resource and the resource group is deleted, there are some intricacies there, and the documentation will be published shortly. So I will post that in the chat once it is available. But for now, the effect is publicly available on everyone's tenant, so you can go in and test this out. I'll also post in the chat the document we were sharing for the private preview, which kind of has more information in those of how those granularity work. So you guys can look that over and test it out. Yeah, we're very excited for this to be able to have the action supported of delete. I will add that one caveat is that the compliance screen will just say not started, and it'll kind of stay in that state. We're currently working on having a new compliance state called protected, and that will show those resources that are protected from these actions. That is expected to be released sometime in February, which is around the same time that we plan on taking this DenyAction GA. So the only thing that's pending, GA is that protected state, but the effect is fully GA supported, and our support staff has been onboarded, and we're treating it as a GA effect, and even starting to use it internally as well. So, and as I mentioned, we will be going GA with just delete, but then in the future, we're looking into supporting different actions such as move is something that we're looking into investing next. So that's DenyAction, quite exciting. Next in the strings of public previews is our manual attestation feature. So we previously talked a bit about it, and this has actually been public preview for about 2 months. So this is the ability to manually attest to your compliance state. This is specifically around scenarios in which policy can't assess the particular compliance states of a resource or of some standard, but it's still important to have that compliance information roll up into the policy compliance blades. So I'll walk you through how you would do that. So let's say in this example, you want to look up, has everyone taken their security training, right? That's not something that policy can assess on, but it's important to keep track of in your compliance records. So here we have a policy that targets all subscriptions, and then we say effect is manual, meaning the policy won't assess anything, it is manually assessed. And then in the details, your default state, we've introduced a new compliance state of unknown. This is just a gray state, meaning we don't know what it is, and inferences, there's action to be taken, or you have to do an attestation to this resource, to this scope. So unknown, you can also do default state of compliant or non-compliant, but our recommendation is unknown, and then if you don't include a default state, the default is unknown as well. But that is our policy. We will go ahead and assign that, and then we'll see compliance view similar to this, right? So we'll see the unknown compliance state, you can see the effect as manual, and here I have my one subscription that is unknown, right? So I don't know, have I done the security training or not? Not sure. So how I will test to that compliance is by creating an attestation resource. So this is a Microsoft.policy insights / attestation resource. And here you can see that at my sub, I'm referencing the assignment. And then I'm also, I'm attesting to the compliance state. You can see there, compliance state compliant. And then it has a lot of cool, intricacies in terms of things like expires on, who's the owner of that attestation. You can add comments and evidence, such as like source URIs to different evidence documentation.
Emily?
And then, yes.
Hey, I'm so sorry to interrupt. It seems like there are a number of people who can't see you or see the deck or hear you. I'm able to see you, and I think a few other people are as well, but maybe we can, I don't know, reshare or see if we can.
Yes.
Okay.
Then we do that.
Sorry to interrupt. Thanks for the feedback, folks. For those of you who can hear me, we'll be sure to share some, the links in the chat as well, and as well as our contact information. And we're happy to do this in a more, in a smaller format. So with that, I think Emily just joined. Do you want to try again?
Yes, I have re-shared the screen. Oh, it seems like Jenny was trying to talk, but I didn't hear her.
Same here. Interesting. I'm open to other suggestions, but maybe we can continue and share the recording after.
Yeah, I think my recommendation would be to. Oh, it seems that we somehow ended up in breakout rooms. But on my side, I don't see any of that. Interesting. I think there might be something going wrong with the invite. I think my recommendation would be to, if you can, just drop off from the meeting, join again, and then we will share the recording afterwards.
I'll relay that in the chat in case anyone can't hear us.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I will continue. So you create this manual attestation resource, and that will help you attest to what compliance state is needed. So you could add anything to the URI and then saved from there. The benefit of having its own attestation resource is you get to have its own life cycle, so you can do things like expires on, so that every year people have to go in and attest to it, and then just better management of that compliance. And that's manual attestation, so the whole thing is now publicly available, from creating these attestations to using the effect and also the compliance state of unknown. That's all available in public. Perfect. Next on our list of public previews, we've been able to finally go public preview in our wonderful feature of resource selectors. We've talked a bit about this in terms of having having your resources be targeted during deployment time, specifically around safe deployment. So we talked about selectors, overrides, and versioning. That was kind of one meeting I believe we had towards the beginning of this year. So resource selectors, which is a property on both assignments and exemptions, have been officially released and able to use, and there's documentation on this that I'll also post into the chat. Here you're able to see that I created a selector that says safe deploy regions, and we support resource location and resource type as the two kinds for the public preview that we support. So in this policy assignment, we're safe deploying to these specific resource regions, so East US 2 and Central US. And then for the safe deployment types, we're doing the container servers, managed clusters, and networking virtual networks. So this means inclusive of the definition and the assignment scope, we're only going to be looking at resources that are, container servers, managed clustered resources, virtual network resources that are in East US, Central US under the scope given, and that are still applicable to the definition. What this allows you to do is just safely deploy these policies, so you could continue to add in more locations and more resource types at the assignment level instead of what was previously quite often done, which is at the definition level. So by doing it at the assignment level, you have more control over it, less possible error, don't have to update your definitions anymore, and you can continue to add in locations and resource type as you safely deploy. You can also use this for outside of deployment purposes, just for applicability purposes. We know that there's quite a bit of scenarios in which you only want to apply certain resource types to for certain assignments. So this is also a way to doing that without having to have a condition within your having to have a condition within your definition.
What's the limit on the number of resources that can be in the selector?
There is no limit on the number of resources you can have underneath the selector. I think there's a total limit in the size of your assignment. I believe it's 3 megabytes, but I'll have to confirm with that again.
Yeah, because in parameters, you can only have 100 items in a list. It can't be any more than that. You can have up to 7 parameters, but you can't have more than 100 items in any one parameter list. So I was wondering if it was the same problem here, because there's literally hundreds of resource namespaces, not even getting down to the types.
Yeah, I will reconfirm if there's anything in terms of the in, but my gut instinct is to say that no, and it's more of the size of the assignment that is the concern. So
okay, great,
I'll
thanks.
reconfirm. Yes. Yeah, so that's selectors, and then going hand in hand with selectors, we have overrides. So as we also mentioned this before in safe deployment contexts, but it's the ability to manage your effect at the assignment level with overrides instead of using parameters. So the benefit of overrides is regardless of what effect is actually stated in the allowed values or stated in the actual effect, override has the final say in terms of effect. It controls it, and then you're able to kind of force the effect as long as it's applicable to that definition. So in this example, you could see that we actually are forcing 2 different effects depending on 2 different types of definition reference IDs. So I'm saying, this is an initiative. I have 3 policies, and I want to manage the effect across these. So I'm saying for the limit SKU and limit type policy, I want to, or definition reference ID, though that one should be audit, and then the update SKU should be modified. With overrides, you're able to define that granularity within the definition reference ID, but you're also able to use selectors, say only certain locations can have certain effects, or certain resource types should have certain effects, et cetera, just allowing that more granularity in terms of where does my effect apply, and then once again managing that at the assignment level instead of having to manage it, maybe within parameters or at the definition level. And then overrides will work for both custom or built-in definitions. So if you have a built-in today that, let's say, only supports deny effect, but you want it in audit, you can, when at assignment time of that built-in, you can override it and say, kind policy effect, value audit. So now that built-in in your environment will be assigned in an audit effect without having to, duplicate the definition, customize it to have audit, and then go from there. So saving some of that duplication of definitions as well.
In this example, is kind
Yes.
2 different definitions? 2 different
Kind
policy
is,
definitions?
yes. So this is an initiative, right? And the ins for each of these are the definition reference IDs for those policy definitions, and they're all different there.
Right, because I was going to say, because you can't have an audit and a modify in the same policy.
Correct. Well, this is
Okay.
in terms of like different policies within an initiative. Perfect.
And this is the final word.
Yes. The final say, override gets it.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how I can see this operationally.
Any other questions? Okay. I will now move the mic over to Neha to talk about the extension for ARC.
Thanks, Kemley. Hi, everybody. We wanted to give a quick announcement to highlight the recent GA of Azure Policies extension for ARC-enabled Kubernetes clusters. If you're unfamiliar with ARC, I'll just give a really quick, in a nutshell, how this connects to governance. So you can connect your Kubernetes, with Azure ARC, you can connect your Kubernetes clusters from a variety of places to become ARC-enabled. So this includes your clusters on-prem. This includes your clusters hosted on other public clouds like EKS, GKE, as well as your Kubernetes deployed in edge environments. And so you can take all of those clusters and you can archify them, and then you can apply various ARC extensions on them. And that includes being able to apply governance at scale. So as I mentioned, this extension has recently gone GA. And if you were here for the last governance call, you're familiar with some of the Kubernetes offerings that we have. So some of the key scenarios that we talked about last time, you'll be able to apply on your ARC-ified clusters as well. And like mentioned last time, not only will you be able to apply our built-in definitions, but you'll be able to author your own custom definitions to enforce and aggregate compliance. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to share a blog post in the chat that we recently released on this. And if you also want to see that tutorial that I shared in the last governance call, I'm happy to do it again for anyone in a smaller forum. So please feel free to just contact us. With that, I'll hand it back to Kemley.
Perfect. Thank you, Neha. And then next is the ARN system event. I can't see. I believe Supriya was supposed to speak on this. I don't see her on the call, however. I will reach out to her. I believe that there has been a private preview in terms of the ARN system topics. She shared some information in the last meeting around being able to have these system events and monitor, your resources and the health of them. And I believe there's a survey that she wanted to get some feedback in this. But I will reach out to her and have her speak at the next call to make sure that she says any important information that needs to be said. So we'll skip over this one for today. Yep. And then last but not least is open for questions. I do see there's a lot of questions in the chat kind of around some Teams issues. I want to say so sorry on my side as the organizer. I don't see anything going on. I don't see breakout rooms or anything of that sort. But I will share the slides and I will share the recording so everyone can be up to date as to what's going on. But yeah, I will